Imagine with me for a minute, you have a new patient that just came in to the office. They met with the doctor, thrilled with the service, thrilled with the doctor, and excited to move forward and have their health challenge addressed. In the meantime, you had a new patient that tried to call. They were put on hold. They got a busy signal. They filled out the online form and nobody got back to them. And you lost the potential for even more clients. The worst part of that situation is the person that was trying to make that appointment was a referral. And those referrals are hard to get because it takes a lot of effort, work, and process to get people to refer people they know. You not only damaged one relationship by not making it easy for that person to schedule, but you also damaged the relationship with the person that referred them because that person's going to go back to the original patient and say, yeah, I tried to get in with your doc, but I couldn't even get through. I either got put on hold, I had to go through a menu of 25 options, or I filled out the form and nobody ever got back to me. If you're experiencing this, you are leaving so much money on the table. And we're going to talk about in this episode what you need to do to fix the challenges and to eliminate the friction between new patients and even existing patients getting on your schedule so that they remain happy or become happy patients. If we haven't met yet, I'm Alisa Conner, and every week I show up to help specialty medical practices and professional service business owners connect the tactics of their marketing to actual client and patient growth. If you're struggling with seeing the traction of your marketing making a difference in your business, you want to stay tuned. Access friction is the most underestimated factor in practice growth. And the reason that it isn't really paid attention to is because practices are focusing on things like attracting the best physicians for their office, building more locations, making improvements to the facilities they're in, or even offering really high clinical quality. But if patients can't schedule and there's so much friction between trying to get an appointment and actually getting in the door, you're losing not only patients, but lots and lots of revenue. Research statistics around patient access to your office are a little bit astounding. 60% of patients will abandon a phone call if they're put on hold for more than 1 minute, and they won't ever call back. 35% hang up after 2 minutes. So if your team is trying to address a more challenging situation and they put somebody on hold and it's been more than 2 minutes, you've lost them forever. They're going to someone else. And the hard part about this is these aren't patients that didn't need care. They needed care, but they don't have time for you to get your act together. And so the more challenging you make it, the more challenging it becomes for you to grow your practice. That is what we mean by friction. When you're looking at your profit and loss line items, there's no line item for patients who didn't schedule. In fact, you probably wouldn't even know that it was a problem until you went to look for it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. There are 4 points where patients kind of fall off and end up going somewhere else. And the biggest one is on the phone. So if you are only doing phone scheduling right now, you have a limitation to the number of people that can answer the phone. And if people are being put on hold or they're getting a busy signal or they're forced to go fill out an online web form, chances are they're going to go with somebody else. They're going to go with somebody that has online scheduling because that's the world we live in. And so if you haven't upgraded your practice to include online scheduling, you're being left behind by your competitors. And that's the reality of the situation. And that's not just in practices, that's in business in general. If you don't have an online scheduling option for people that don't have the capacity or the time or the ability to go on and schedule appointments with you because they're at work, they're at soccer practice, they're in the car with a bunch of people, whatever it might be, if you don't have another option for them, they are going to someone that provides that option. And so you are automatically losing the potential patients and clients that you could have from that online scheduling option. But let's dive into the phone. If we're looking at people that are trying to book a phone call appointment, and there are people that will want to do that, and a lot of it is generational. But the reality is if you only have 2 people that are answering phone calls for 45 doctors, you have a lot of people sitting there waiting. And the longer they wait, the madder they are, and the less likely they're going to sit there and wait until somebody gets to them. And it's because the world is very busy. Everybody has a schedule and we are not patient. We are used to instant gratification. We have been primed to have instant gratification at this point in the world. And so if you aren't addressing the biggest challenges of people scheduling online in some way, shape, or fashion that gives people an option or gets to them quickly, you're losing patients by the minute. And it can attune to over almost $900,000 a year. And that's really scary when you look at that as part of your bottom line for something that could be addressed so simply. The second place people are losing patients is with online scheduling. And you would think, oh, online scheduling is going to solve all our problems. Well, it could if it's done right. But however, it's not always done right. And all of the appointment availability is not listed there, or it takes so many clicks to get to an appointment that people give up, or you require too much information for people to even know if they want an appointment with you because you're asking them for 15 pieces of information and they don't even know if there's a time that's going to fit with their schedule. And so if you're going to move to online scheduling, you need to really take into consideration the patient journey and the customer journey. The same goes for if you have a professional services business. If you're asking for 15 pieces of information before they ever get an appointment, they're going somewhere else because the appointments, they can click on the button and there are the appointments. The other place that I see people struggle with online scheduling, I just had this experience with an office that I was analyzing, is that they only set up online scheduling for current or existing patients. And that's not helping you at all because those people already have access likely to some sort of back end portal where they can log in and get the information they want or have a conversation with their doctor. Whereas new patients, they need to have that online scheduling and you want them to have it and you want to make it easy for them to be able to do that. Because if you aren't, they're going to your competitors. I did a recent video where I was analyzing 6 different practices. And that was the number one challenge that I saw with most organizations is if they did have online scheduling, the process to get through that scheduling was so horrific that nobody's going to go through all those steps. Some of those online scheduling options had up to 11 pieces of information or clicks that they wanted people to take before they ever got to even see if there was an appointment time with the doctor they wanted to see. Now, I can see that you would need to have some sort of filtering to get people to the right place, but there's ways to do that before they ever get to online scheduling. And if you aren't making that pathway easy for people, they are leaving. They are going somewhere else. Friction point number 3 is around new patient forms. And if you've listened to any of the episodes that I've done recently about new patient forms, the struggle is real. You're asking people to fill out paperwork online, and then they come into the office and it either can't be found, it didn't get processed, and then you ask them to fill it out again. Or the process to fill out the paperwork is so convoluted and complicated that they just give up halfway through the process and they go find someone else, or they just decide this isn't worth my time and energy. And so that's another place that you're losing patients. If you're making it really hard for people to fill out the paperwork, for example, they have to print it out and then fill it out and then either scan it or fax it or in some way get it back to you, that is where you're losing people. That's another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. Make it easy for people to fill out the paperwork and make sure that it is working and going to the right places so that when that patient comes in, the doctor's already looked at it, his assistant and his staff have been able to look at it, and you can welcome that patient knowing where they are coming from, what they're challenged with at the moment, and how you're best going to help them, which makes it easier for you to get to the solution. And it cuts down on appointment time, whether you're willing to spend time with them or not to make it feel like they are really valuable to your practice. Eliminating repetitive storytelling, for lack of a better term, of what is going on with them is going to free up time. And when you have more time, you're able to see more people and you're able to spend additional hand-holding time, for lack of a better term, with the people that are in your office, which makes them feel special, which is really what we're aiming for when we want to have a world-renowned practice or business. And then the fourth and final point of friction that we're going to talk about today is the leave a message and we'll call you back. This is such a turnoff, especially to younger generations. Number one, they don't like to talk on the phone. When you're looking at Gen Z or younger, maybe even millennials, they don't want to talk on the phone. They want to do everything via text or via the internet or they don't want to email either. Let's just be honest. So if you're asking them to leave a message and you're going to call them back, they're hanging up. Like you've already lost them. And this is the next generation of buyers. So I want you to pay attention to this part because you may have some people that are older that are perfectly happy leaving a message, but they're only going to wait so long and it's shorter than you think for you to call them back. And if you don't get back to them quickly, they're moving on. They have a list of people they can call and they're going to move on to the next person. And by the time you get back to them with your schedule or when somebody has time to call them back, it may be too late. And so you've lost people there as well. So when we're looking at the world, I touched on this a little bit earlier when I talked about instant gratification. Well, the reason that we all have been conditioned for instant gratification is because of companies like Amazon. You can order something on Amazon and it can be there later that afternoon. And the most it's going to be is a couple days later. We are not only comparing our experience with scheduling with your office to scheduling with other medical offices, we're comparing that experience to every other experience that we have, whether it's shopping or getting a restaurant reservation or getting takeout or whatever it might be. If your process isn't as smooth as all the other processes that we go through to do the things we want to do, you are losing us as patients and as clients. And we have to ensure that those processes are so ironed out and so smooth and so flawless that we are the Amazon of our business. And when you can become the Amazon of your business with even a higher touch, you become unstoppable. I'm not saying Amazon is perfect. At the end of the day, they're a $1 billion company, but they're definitely not perfect. And there are things that happen when you order from Amazon that because they're such a big organization, they have no control over. But because you're not the size of Amazon, that gives you an advantage because you can actually iron out processes and the different ways that you treat your patients so that you become flawless. You become the flawless version of Amazon, which is really impressive, not only for your practice, but it makes your patients feel like they are the number one priority for you and your business. The other component of this Amazon analysis is that because insurance companies are requiring higher deductibles, the process of medical care is becoming more consumer focused. Like people are really shopping around and they're finding the best option for, lack of a better term, bang for their buck. Because if it's challenging to work with your office and you don't meet the deductibles for their insurance or there's another hiccup along the way, the chances that they're going to come and work with you versus somebody else are much lower. And you don't want to have that. You want them to be coming to you and seeing that you have the flawless experience of your version of Amazon and you really care about their health, their well-being, and their future. This is the big differentiation factor, is that it's not only do you have to have smooth processes and ways for people to do business with you, but you also have to illustrate to them we're different because we not only have all of that in order, but we do these other things to care for our patient and give them an exceptional experience. One of the best ways to see what your current experience is to do an audit on your own practice. Whether it's you or your practice administrator, there are 4 specific things that you should check on regularly. One of the best ways that you can see where the friction points in your process for people that are trying to schedule your office is to do an audit. And you or your practice administrator or someone in your office can go through the process of what it's like. And what the first step would be is to call your office during peak times, during slow times, and during a time that would be maybe after hours and document what happens. Document the process, see how long you're on hold, see how long it takes for someone to get to a human, and document all the things along the way. If you have a phone tree, how many options are there? Are they confusing? How long do you have to listen? Time it. Is it 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 50 seconds? Because if it's more than 30 seconds and they haven't even gotten through the options of who to contact yet, the chances that they're going to sit there and do that drop dramatically every second that they're on the phone before they get to talk to a human being. The next place that you can do this audit is online. If you have an online scheduling form, fill it out. How long does it take for somebody to get back to you? Does somebody get back to you? One of the practices I audited, they're like, oh, we never even look at those forms. We don't even know who they go to. And so if someone is filling that out thinking they're going to get a patient appointment and nobody looks at those or they don't get back to them for 48, 72 longer hours, what are the chances they're going to wait around for you to get back to them? Slim to none. If you have online scheduling, are there hiccups in the online scheduling process? How many clicks do they have to go through before they can get scheduling times? Is it easy to find scheduling times for the doctor that they want to see? Is it easy for them to decipher which doctors do what so that they know if they have an ankle injury, they should not be scheduling with the shoulder doctor? If those aren't clear, if those pathways aren't clear, you have friction and you have challenges that are keeping people from scheduling with you. Those are all things that can be audited and looked at. The third thing you can look at in this audit is how long is the time period between when a new patient request comes in, whether that's a referral or it's a direct patient coming from the web, it's a phone call, whatever it is. How long is it between that request and when they actually get an appointment? Measure those times, come up with an average, and then determine, is that your best? Are you going to aim for better? And if you're going to aim for better, what's the process that you're going to put into place to do that? And if you don't have one, I highly recommend that you come up with one, because the faster you can make it and the smoother you can make it, the more likely you're going to attract and keep not only patient referrals, but also referrals that are coming from other medical practices. And then the last component that I mentioned earlier is to check your after hours process. If you have somebody that has an emergency and you don't have a way for them to get in touch with someone in your office and you haven't made the process clear to them, they're going to the ER. And that may not be the best fit for them. And they may end up having to get to you eventually. But if the emergency room has a partnership or a referral agreement with a different office, you're never going to get to them. So what's your process in place? What's the options that you can offer people that need after hours care? And are you clearly communicating the way that works in your practice? And if you're not, that's an area that you can also improve in. The purpose of this is it's not to create shame. It's not to tell you what you're doing wrong. It's not to point out all of the places that are inefficient. What it is an opportunity for you to see from a new perspective what's happening from the outside in. Oftentimes, whether you're in business or you are in medicine or any type of organization, is we are only privy to the things that happen to us on a daily basis. We wear blinders in our business. I've seen this not only with corporate 500 businesses, but also entrepreneurs. We walk around with blinders because we are surrounded by people who see the world the way we do, because we're always together. But when you have an outside perspective, you can bring new visibility and a perspective to the organization so that you can make viable changes. And that doesn't mean you have to change everything all at once. Like, nobody's going to be able to go through this process, this audit process, and fix everything in a week or 30 days or even 90 days, because things take time and it's not the only thing you have on your docket. But bringing awareness to that and then chipping away at it a little bit at a time is going to make a huge difference. And it's also going to help you delineate yourselves from other people in your industry. And so I thought it would be helpful if you had a process for you to follow to start to fix some of these challenges that become visible to you and to your organization, so that you can recoup some of the return on investment you're making for whether it's online scheduling or your marketing or your referral partnerships or whatever it might be, so that you're removing any kind of friction that would keep people from booking appointments with your practice and ultimately becoming not only patients, but additional people that could refer you and your practice to their friends, family, and anyone else. The first step of this practice is to set a baseline. And so if you're implementing online scheduling, you set a baseline of the minimum or the maximum amount of time it takes for anyone to get back to someone who fills out a form, makes a call, leaves a message, whatever it might be, for your practice. And this includes scheduling new appointments, whether it's you're sending them an email to confirm, or they get a phone call from somebody in your office that says, hey, we saw that you came in, or we saw that an appointment request came in for you to see Dr. Who's It. And we want to make sure that you have everything you need including the paperwork link so that that can get filled out before you get here, because that's going to save you time. It saves the doctor time, and we can be up to speed on what's happening with you. So we're not wasting your time while you're here. If your baseline response is 2 hours, then you need to stick with it and make sure that it's happening. And there needs to be some sort of measurement that goes along with that. Like within 30 days, we are going to make sure we're meeting our 2 hour minimum window. And so set the baseline and make adjustments to your process, to your people, and to everything going on with that process as time goes on so that you are meeting it. And don't move on to the second step of this process until you've met your baseline. The second component is to reduce hold time. And one of the best ways to reduce hold time is to offer people the option for a callback. And if your phone system does not provide this, then you need to switch systems, because the technology is available and it should be an easy, quick fix for your phone system to be able to add that as an addition in your menu. In fact, I probably wouldn't even have any additional menu options. I would say either can hold, here's the hold time, or if you push this button, we'll call you back. And have again, standard time that you're going to be calling people back. Is it 10 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? Is it an hour? And it doesn't have to be exact every time, but you have to have an idea. Is it going to take people an hour to get back to them because the phones are blowing up? Or is there someone else in your practice that can make those phone calls? And the other component of this is if you have the ability through your phone system, some of them have it, some of them don't, to track the number of calls that are lost because they hang up or they give up, then I would start tracking those things too, because that's going to tell you a lot about what's happening on those phone calls and see if there's a way for you to improve that or what you need to do in your practice or your office to make improvements in that way. Because you can't improve it if you don't know what's happening. And so anything that can be measured, I am a huge fan of. And then the third component is to create some sort of metric tracking for every new inquiry that comes in, and whether or not that leads to a patient scheduling, or if patients come in, you're tracking who they came from, how they heard about you. And this doesn't have to be complicated. If you have a CRM, great, put it in there. If you don't, open up a Google Sheet, an Excel spreadsheet, or whatever it is, and have your team start tracking that information. It is a simple question. You can add it. You can add it to an online form. You can add it to a simple check-in conversation. And if everybody has access to it, it makes it easy for people to go in and start to track those things. But the most important part of this is the tracking, because if you're not tracking what's happening here, here, or here, then there's no way to know what is working and what isn't working when it comes to your referral partnerships, your online marketing, your offline marketing, and all of the other ways that people are finding out about your business. And it can be as simple as 2 questions. How did you hear about our practice? Awesome. We want to make sure that we are keeping those referral, if it's another PCP practice, for example, we want to make sure that we're keeping those relationships solid and that we're taking care of those people because we really appreciate them sending them over. If it's a patient referral, even better. We want to thank them in some way. Or if it's online, oh, great. Was it an ad? And sometimes people won't remember, but it never hurts to ask because they may remember. It was on Instagram. Well, if you're running Instagram ads, chances are pretty high it was an Instagram ad, unless they call out a specific post. The simple act of tracking this is going to highlight and make visible places that you're losing patients within your practice. So, as you know, with every episode, I try to have an action plan, and this week is no different. And so your action plan is pretty simple. We just went through it. It's to find somebody in your office, whether that's you, a practice administrator, somebody that handles the incoming calls most often, to go and do this audit on your practice. Call your practice, go through the online scheduling option that you offer. Whatever options you give to patients, go through every single one and document your experience. And talk about the good things too. Oh, they really answered the call quickly. They had answers to all of my questions. They gave me more information than I needed. And that's why it's almost better if you do this anonymously and they don't know who is calling. And so oftentimes it has to be somebody that's not directly linked to the front desk, or, their voice can't be as recognized, because it gives you a more neutral experience and will show you exactly what's happening with your potential patients. The second step of this process is for you to go and look at all the data you can for anybody that's making a new patient inquiry, whether that's website forms or online scheduling, or they're making a phone call. And you want to see how many of those inquiries actually turned into patients if you can. This might take a little bit of finagling at first because you're starting from ground zero, but it's going to give you a baseline of where your gaps are and where you need to fill the gaps. The third component of this audit is to talk to your front desk team and ask them, like, what's the number one reason people say they aren't becoming a patient? Or what do you hear most often about the patient booking experience that's causing it to be a challenge for our future patients? What are the things you hear most often about why people aren't coming to our practice? And then start documenting those things, because those are the immediate things that you want to focus on and fix. One of the things that I specifically do for specialty medical practices is to complete this audit for them. As an outside observer, it's easier for me to pick up on things that are happening in all of the different ways that they can schedule an appointment with you. And I'm going to thoroughly document all of the hiccups that I see along the way and the places that you're leaving not only patients behind, but revenue. If you want some assistance with this specific audit, there is a link below this video. In the meantime, thanks so much for tuning in. If you found this episode valuable, I would love for you to share it with a friend and hit that like button. YouTube loves it, and so do I. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, take care, be well, and stay safe. See you soon.